Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Just give people a second to file. We had some password issues, so we just turned it off for this particular meeting. But we're still going to give people about a minute to kind of sort through that.
Okay.
All right, looks like we have almost 200 people in here, so I'll make sure to type this out just so it's clear for everybody, and we are going to cover it later on. But wanted to start by welcoming everyone to today's town hall, and then wanted to quickly cover how to interact and use the Zoom webinar feature. So your webcams and your microphones are disabled by default. So interaction is going to happen two ways. The first is if you want to just type things out, you can use the chat function. Make sure when you type that out, it is defaulting to all panelists. So make sure you select all panelists and attendees in the to window there. And that will make sure that everybody sees it. The second is to use the hand raise feature on your dashboard there. If you raise your hand, it'll be displayed in the attendee window in the order that they were raised. And we'll just announce you and unmute you at a point of discussion points. So without further ado, I want to hand it off to Philip Hunt.
Welcome, ACRO members, staff, friends, and friends to the first ever ACRO Town Hall. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Philip Hunt. I am the University Registrar at North Dakota State University and a board member of ACRO's Black Caucus. I'm joined by my colleague and fellow moderator, Kizzy Morris. Kizzy is a member of the Black Caucus and serves as the University Provost and Chief Academic Officer at Cheyney University of Pennsylvania. I'd also like to recognize and thank Mike Riley, the Executive Director of ACRO, and Jack Miner, the President of ACRO, for their support of this event. Diversity and inclusion are strategic priorities of the association, and the association strives to serve as a strategic leader, connecting and advocating for diversity, equity, access, and inclusion within and across higher education. The second goal is that they want to promote an organizational culture that focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice strategies to empower educational leaders. Further, diversity and inclusion are listed as one of the 6 core competencies for ACRO professionals. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize a few prestigious members who will be available today to answer questions. Joining us, we have the association's current Vice President for Access and Equity, Cassandra Moore, as she is leading ACRO's efforts in these areas. We also have current President-elect and former Vice President for Access and Equity, Tiffany Robinson, as well as Tina Deneen, ACRO's Associate Director of Meetings and Partnerships, as she also promotes the work of access and equity for the association. This event is the brainchild of Rosalind Perry, the Associate Registrar for Eligibility and Testing Services at The Ohio State University and the Chair of ACRO's Black Caucus. The mission of the Black Caucus is to support professional development, networking, and the discussion of issues affecting Black students and professionals throughout college and university communities. The caucus engages in identifying solutions to issues surrounding access, as well as examining ways to enhance and increase the representation of both Black students and professionals within colleges and universities. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our chair, Rosalind, to say a few words.
Thank you, Phil. While Phil accurately articulated my role with ACRO and The Ohio State University, for which I'm very proud, I am more than that. I am a Black woman who is also a mother of a Black. I am a sister and a daughter of a Black man who has been deeply affected by the recent events that have occurred. I decided to create this event because we are tired. We live this as a Black woman and as a Black person and as a mother of a Black son. I live this every day. As I said in the description of this town hall, we are living the Black people's reality. We are not safe in the country that we call home. Our lived experiences clearly reinforce that regardless of personal and professional achievement, as my colleague so eloquently stated, we are not immune to the inhumane effects of racism, racial profiling, and hatred. Every morning we wonder if this is the day that our family or someone we know will become a victim of this cancer in society. I wake up in the morning and I look at the news and I just get tired. I go to work every day as a Black woman in an administrative role within the office of the registrar at Ohio State, as the only Black person or the only Black member of a leadership team in an office of almost 50 people. Every day, I have to put that mask on. And then when I get home or when I get in my office, I have to take it off. And then I still, even when I'm out in public, people look at me and sometimes they look at me with a look of, oh, there she is again. Every night when I get home or before I go to bed, I just pray to God that my son, who is 19 years old and trying to live his best life, that he makes it home. I sleep with my phone by my bed because I feel like I'm going to get that call. So when experience witnessing murder of George Floyd on national television, I felt the need to reach out to my colleagues within the Black Caucus and just check on them and see how they're doing and see how they're handling things. And then that's when I just put a question out saying, do you feel like we need to discuss this? Do you feel we need a town hall? And if so, please reply back. And that's what they did. And here we are today. And I thank everybody that is on this call. And I really hope everybody benefits from what we're going to discuss today. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Roz, and thank you for your leadership and for giving us this platform. We want today's conversation to be open, we want it to be honest, and we want it to be thought-provoking. We must use this time to engage and to learn, and as we do that, let's try to focus on the issues and not personalities. With that being said, I will review the ground rules and the rules of etiquette to help guide us through this discussion. Once again, this town hall is intended to be an interactive conversation. As Mike said, all participants are muted initially until they are ready to comment. Be sure to use the raise hand feature to provide feedback and to use chat functions and comments. Please keep in mind that you do not have to agree with someone else's comments or statements, but let's be respectful of one another. And lastly, please share resources and references that you may find helpful. Okay. Just want to quickly talk about what we're going to do, okay? Based on the series of events involving people of color and being unjustly killed by police officers and vigilantes posing as law enforcement, we want to explore how we can, as a National Association of Educational Professionals, use our collective strength to help bring more attention to this issue and to set a strategy for improving race relations through meaningful action on a local, regional, and national level. We present this question as recent events have shown us that protests aid to bring recognition and attention to particular issues. However, protesting by itself is simply and clearly not enough. Thoughtful action must be taken. Secondly, we want to determine what resources and support mechanisms we can share with one another as we strive to help our fellow members heal and educate those who want to provide support but are not sure where to start. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kizzy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to cover a couple of ground rules, some technical issues as we move into our conversation and discussion. I think by now, most of us, if not all of us, are experts with handling a virtual meeting. But just in case, we have the chat feature at the bottom. If you would like to comment in chat, please just click on that chat icon. You may need to change the options in terms of if you're just responding to one person, to the panelists, or to everyone. Make sure you click that appropriate button when you're typing in your message. So we would have the chat. The chat is open. I see it's already active. Thank you very much for sharing your feedback. Also, we would like to give you an opportunity to be vocal on this in this town hall. So if you would like to do that, please use the raise the hand. That's accessible on the participant icon. So when you click on the participant icon and another window pops open, there's a little box at the bottom that says raise your hand. So just click on that raised hand so that we know and we can call on you to share with us verbally, vocally, how you're feeling and how you are responding to some of these issues. Okay, so we are open for feedback.
All right, Adrienne McDay, you are, we've unmuted you. I think you have the power to unmute yourself now.
Unmute. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? I am Adrienne Keller McDay, past president of the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. It does me proud to see you guys here in this meeting, taking on these topics, things that we had been fighting for back in the 80s so that we would have a platform. You must continue to fight. You must continue to be vocal, and you must continue to engage one another. It's very hard. I heard you, Rosalind, talk about being the only African-American in your office. I was that for about 38 years. And it was okay because you have to tell them how you feel because they won't hesitate to tell you how they feel. You must be honest. You must be open. Those 4 things that were listed when this call first started talked about be honest, what have you. Those were 4 things that I said the first time I've ever sat on the Nominations and Elections Committee of ACRA. Some of those people at that particular time didn't particularly care for us or what we had to offer. That didn't mean anything. You must continue to persevere. Even though people will not accept you, you must continue to persevere. because you, of course, are the individuals that can make a difference, and only you can. Thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate your love, your friendship, and full speed ahead.
Thank you, Adrian.
One second. And just as a reminder, everyone, when you use the chat feature, make sure that you select all panelists and attendees just to make sure that everyone is able to see that. I see we do have a few questions in the chat, which other people are able to see. But Tom Green asks, how can those of us who see ourselves as allies but are of the majority group support our colleagues and friends of color at this time and in the future?
Educate yourself. Educate yourself. You know, you don't step to me and tell me you know how I feel, because you don't. You know, I think, to me, when people saying, you know, how are you feeling? How are you doing? I'm not okay. I'm not okay. You need to educate yourself, and Kizzy and Philip and Cassandra, please jump in if you wish. But from my perspective, I feel like you need to educate yourself, or you need to initiate a dialogue where you become not so much fully educated, but at least you become aware to know how to have a conversation with people of color.
I agree. And yesterday I was having a little sidebar with a colleague, and we were talking about allies. And as we were going back and forth with each other, just brainstorming about ideas and how we create allies, he said to me, you know, maybe we need to move away from allies and start creating accomplices, because this is all about action. You know, we just don't need people on the sidelines nodding their heads and agreeing that, yes, there are issues. Yes, there is a certain situation, but we need folks who are going to act so that we can move the needle and start really opening folks' eyes and making people aware that it's one thing to just say, yes, I support you, but we really need folks who are going to really help us make the change that's needed.
You know, I'll share something, an experience that I had just the other night. I had a former teammate of mine call me up, and he's a white police officer in the state of Connecticut. And the message that he sent me was, you know, as I get together and unpack my riot gear prior to going to this demonstration, he says, I am conflicted. I'm not sure how to feel or what to do. And so that night we chatted. And the key for him, because he said, where do I even start? I said, well, the good news for you is that we already have an existing relationship. I said, but you have to start becoming uncomfortable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, okay? And don't be afraid to ask questions, right? They might not be, go by, you know, forget the tone of what the comments may be or the answers may be, and try to be open to a different perspective. And before jumping to a conclusion, continue to ask clarifying questions of what's really going on. I said, because this thing, what is it? We all know that this is a multi-layered issue, right? It's not just about one particular thing. It's not just about the one cop who did it, right? That's one cop in one precinct. This is a system-wide issue, right, with beginnings that most of us can't even comprehend, which is why we all need to come together and share our perspectives, be open, and continue to ask questions for understanding. So, you know, long answer to your question, but it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's gonna be, and we have to move past that.
I'd like to share something. I'm Cassandra Moore, Vice President of Access and Equity. I have asked my staff to expand the prism of their lived experience. Expand the prism of their lived experience and open your eyes. And also ask my colleagues to be advocates when it matters. It matters that you're an advocate at the family dinner. When you're talking to a family member who is racist and make racist comments, that you talk to your children about racism and be open and honest. The more I see people calling the police on Black people who are in their spaces, doing nothing to harm anybody, but just in their spaces, it is just beyond my imagination that yesterday someone called a police on a woman who was sitting on a bench or whatever. But it just appears that many people, not many people, it appears that some people don't want Black people in their spaces. And so when you are at that family dinner, alone with all of your friends who look like you, and things are being said that denote racism and approve racist thought, this is when you can be an advocate, and this is when it counts, and this is when your work will really matter. Thank you.
That's great. And Josie Martinez had his hand raised. You're unmuted and free to speak.
Hi. So my question was that I work in transfer credit at my university, and through some of my research I've done that looks at student demographics, it's Black and Hispanic students are less likely to transfer from 2-year to 4 colleges than other racial groups, and more likely to leave 4-year colleges for 2-year colleges. So it seems like there's obviously something wrong that 4-year colleges are doing, that they're not helping Black students correctly. So I guess I just wanted to ask if there are any certain journals that anyone would recommend universities should read if they're trying to address this problem, or actions they can take, or maybe common themes that they should be aware of when they're working with students, Black students from transferring from 2-year colleges.
So this is Kizzy. I've worked a lot with transfer students in my higher ed career. And I would just say that transfer students go where they go and they stay where they feel most comfortable, right? And now working at an HBCU, we do not have a lot of students transferring back and forth based on the community that we try to foster with our students to make them feel welcome and at home and safe. I have worked at other institutions where, you know, there's a multicultural center, and when you walk on campus, you would notice that that's kind of where all of your Black and brown students will be congregating. They're not necessarily, they don't necessarily feel welcome in other venues, but they feel most comfortable in the multicultural center. And as such, that's where they'll center all their activities, and if that space is not safe for them, then they will definitely try to find a safer space, probably at another institution. There are there's some research that has been done in regards to this, and I'll make sure that it becomes part of our resource bank or resource repository, so that if you go back there later, then you can read about what others have done to, you know, other activities that people have engaged in to help with this.
Let me share.
Sorry.
Okay. Let me share as a person who works at community college and I've worked in transfer from a 2 to a 4-year to 4-year college. Community college students, you have to create a sense of family, a sense of connection and engagement. And you have to give them a sense that there is one person, at least one person in this college that cares about me. Many times community college students come from backgrounds where there are challenges. And so I'm dealing with that now. And so as we have transitioned to a virtual environment, I'm working very hard to create a sense of engagement with them with these individual Zoom sessions. because you can't come on campus yet. And so you don't put them in big groups and expect them to participate. But you need to identify a cadre of people who are going to be their allies, who they can circle back to. And they may talk to me about financial aid or something that's not in my expertise, but they know I will figure something out and that I care. So creating that sense of family and community, strong level of engagement, that ability to check in, and then make sure the visuals are there. The materials that you develop and you mail for marketing, or what's on your website, and what does your faculty look like, and what does the building look like? And don't forget the frontline staff. The frontline staff can kill it. They need to be trained just like you're trained to deal with people with multiple, who are bilingual, who come from different socioeconomic backgrounds. If your front office staff is a bunch of kids, work study students, and they haven't been trained, you need to train them.
That's great. And then Soraya, you're free to speak.
Hi, everybody. This is Soraya Urquiza. I'm the Latinx Caucus Chair for ACRO. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Black Caucus for hosting this. This is amazing. We saw a lot of institutions putting out Black Lives Matter statements this week, right? And I just kind of want to go off of what Cassandra was mentioning, was if your institution truly is about Black Lives Mattering, then we need to take this, you need to take this opportunity to look at your boardroom. You know, the fact that Rosalind is the only Black person in a leadership team of 50 is very telling, right? So if your institution put out this statement this week, hold them accountable. Review your policies. If you really are about Black Lives Mattering, are your policies reflecting that? Are they equitable? These are things that we need to go back to and to the drawing board. Lastly, while I 100% appreciate this town hall, it is up to us, non-Black folks, to do the work. It is up to ourselves to educate our communities as well about our own anti-Blackness, because there's a lot of anti-Blackness in the Latinx community. So in order to fully support our Black brothers and sisters and colleagues, we need to do the work, and we need to educate ourselves and our community and speak up. So thank you.
Great. And then we have one more, unless you guys want to move on, but Katia.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think I'm struggling with, and I would challenge everyone here to sort of think about this. I have removed myself from social media because I'm arguing with Black and white counterparts about how we move forward. There are a lot of students, I think, and staff that are in sort of multiracial families. And so now you're sort of in the middle on this. It's sort of, you know, what do I support? And they want to support both people equally. So I've had personally people in my family that say, my sister, if you don't say Black Lives Matters, you're missing the message. And then I have my brother-in-law or my sister, someone that's also married to a Black person in my family saying, all lives matter. And there's this giant debate going on in my family, just my family, about if you say one thing, it dismisses the other. And I even think about our students. We are in a society now where it's very multiracial. And so there's this dichotomy of, if you say Black Lives Matter, then you say all lives don't matter. And if you say all lives matter, then you say Black lives don't matter. And we have students that are experiencing this, as well as our own families. And what would the panel say about how we navigate this?
So I wanna ask Philip to kind of share with us, because as we were trying to put this together, he had an amazing anecdote that he had shared with us in regards to differentiating between the Black Lives Matter and the All Lives Matter situation, which I think is very profound when you really think about it.
Why, thanks, Kizzy. I can't take credit for it. it was mentioned to me at the dinner table with my wife, and to bring this to the forefront, I am in a mixed race household. And so this is a conversation happening in my home almost on a daily basis now. And so how she put it to me, because we struggled with this, and she heard it from one of her friends. She says, okay, let's imagine that your house is on fire. Okay, the fire department comes and they spray water on your house to try to put the fire out, and they're successful in doing such. Would you then complain to those that fire department that they didn't also try to put the fire out or put water on your neighbor's house? Well, that just sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? They should come in and focus on the house that's on fire. Well, when you talk about Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, right now we're dealing with a crisis with Black lives. They're not in opposition. So by saying Black Lives Matter doesn't mean everybody else's life doesn't matter. It means that attention right now needs to be focused on this issue. Why? Because our house is on fire right now.
All right, we have a few more hands raised. Just feel free to let me know if you need to move on, panelists. Alicia Fields, you are good to speak.
Hi, thank you so much for this space. I just had a question as a millennial leader. I know a lot of our conversation, being a representative of the African American community, we often look at our historical context in terms of civil rights, Jim Crow, and like understanding our forefathers' struggle. But as a millennial, we hear the story, but we didn't live the story. But now this is like the first time that many of us, and even some of our Generation Z, are standing up in this, fight for justice. And I've actually heard some criticism from some, our ancestors, our generations before us, who have kind of criticized some of the tactics and the voice of some of the millennials, I guess, in the way that they have come across. So my question really relates to how can we bridge, close that gap and create conversation between the generations so that there are effective and strategic protests or, the right ways of fighting this battle.
I think for me, and what I'm about to say, people may not agree with, but my son went down to the protests here in Columbus, and and I think this is all around the world nationally. Protests they start out as peaceful, and then just simply put it, they turn out a hot mess. And I think with my son being a Generation Z and me being a baby boomer, and then my mother is 78 years old and my father is 85, they ask me, well, where is Ethan? Well, Ethan's downtown protesting. Well, why did you let him go down there? That's not going to solve anything. They're down there. He's going to break a building or break a window, and then he's going to end up in jail. That's not going to do any good. I think the bridge, I think it's just a matter of having those conversations in terms of bridging that gap. I feel like protesting is necessary. And I'm a baby boomer, but I do feel like protesting is necessary. I feel like in some ways we are coming full circle. Like my parents, they lived in that civil rights era. And there were riots and things of that nature. But then when you look at that generation now, they just think that this riot is the worst thing. I think what we do is to just bridge those conversations. Yes, I am all for the protesting, but I think it just needs to be peaceful. I think everybody needs to be able to have that voice to get their points across, but it needs to be peaceful. And I think if that's the case, then maybe we can work to bridge that gap. But that is just my opinion. I'm one person.
That's great. And then Bridget Gant, you're Bridget Grant rather, you're good to go.
And
okay, that was in
sorry.
response to the question about all lives matters. My take on that is that for the people who say that all lives matters, they don't understand the Black Lives Matter movement. Saying Black Lives Matter is in response to the injustice, the racial disparity, and everything that happens to the Black community. They cannot see that when they say all lives matters or blue lives matters. In other words, they're invalidating our experience as a Black community. They're otherizing us, saying that your life does not only your life matter, but our lives matter. Intentionally being blind or intentionally trying not to understand what our issue is and what our cry is that we're not given the same opportunities, we're not treated the same way. We watch over and over again, Black men, Black women gunned down like animals in the street. We even watch our lives being choked out of us. And taking a little step further, when I was watching this last video with George Floyd begging for his life, and the police officers are saying to him, get up and get in the car. How could you get up if you're being pinned down and there's a knee on your neck? It's also almost become a metaphor for Black folks where people are saying to us, get up, pull yourself up by the bootstrap. Why are you still complaining? Slavery is over. But for us, it's not over. For us, none of this is over because you're saying to us to get up. You're saying to us to pull ourselves up by the bootstrap. You're saying every other race is progressing while you still have your knee on our neck and asking us to get up. That's my take.
Great. And I don't know for our panelists if you've had a chance to look at the Q&A or the chat, if there's anything in there that you want to bring into the conversation before I go to the people that have their hands raised.
So I just wanted to just comment a little bit in regards to generationally and cultural differences, right? Because I think generationally, we are dealing with the issues in a different way. Culturally, we're dealing with the issues in a different way. That's not a bad thing. There is no one solution. I think we all have to look at many different ways to tackle these issues and try to come together and figure out the different pathways that we need to follow in terms of real solutions to address the problems that we're all facing. Because right now, yes, the issue and the spotlight is on Black lives, right? But sooner or later, this trickles into other areas. And by us focusing on our Black lives that matter right now, it is going to help us to address other things that are soon to come.
All right. And Tina Hummins, you're good to go. I think you'll have to unmute yourself though. I'm having trouble doing it on my end. All right, well, I'll let you, while we're waiting on that. Mike, I'm also trying to unmute you, but I can't do it.
So maybe while we are trying to figure out how to unmute folks, just to bring to light some of the things that's been posted in our Q&A. Rebecca is asking, how can I respond to coworkers who say those conversations don't pertain to me? Open to the other panelists if you would like to comment and also share with Rebecca some tips.
You know, I'll take a stab at this. You know, I'd be curious to have a conversation with this person to understand why they don't think it pertains to them. You know, right now there's a lot of rhetoric that's out there that tries to divide us. And we as a species have survived because of cooperation and support with one another. That has not changed, okay? And we need to be there to support each other. So things like this don't happen, right? It's the old adage of, you know, if you stand for nothing, right, you'll fall for anything. And so what happens when that person experiences injustice, right? It's just a matter of time. And so if we allow fear and anger and hate to spread, that impacts everyone.
Okay.
I'd like to share something as well. I was looking in the chat and I saw, you know, questions about my white coworkers say this doesn't pertain to me, why should I care? And I'm going to say something to you all a little bit different. Now I'll take my stab at it. Black history is American history. It's as much American history as the Irish coming from Ireland to this country. When we came here willingly or unwillingly, this is our history. We built this country. We built Manhattan. We built Washington, D.C., and I could go on and on. And if you look at any antebellum home, any generational wealth in the South, those homes were built by enslaved people. I don't use the word slaved, enslaved people. I just got done with my book club reading Ta-Nehisi's book, The Water Dancer. I strongly encourage you to read that book. A very different perspective, because he refers to people who are enslaved as task people, task, T-A-S-K-E-D. And he refers to whites as quality. And then he refers to poor whites as low. And when you read that book, you're going to learn some things about what quality really means. And we are not victimized in this book, which I loved. I was part of the facilitation. So I believe that you have to read the books that are being written by us and our young voices in Ta-Nehisi, Colson Whitehead, and others are writing phenomenal things. Colson Whitehead said, I'm going to keep slavery in the forefront because we can't forget slavery. It is because of slavery we are here. And as my mother would say, you know, we've circled back. Nothing old, everything old is new again. When the Black Panthers came out, young, older parents said, oh, they're violent, they're protesting. Guess what? The Black Panthers had they were part of Oakland's community, and they were about a part of building that community. So when you look at why it doesn't matter, we are you and you are us. Whether you want to separate yourself from us or not, our history is your history. You can't, it shouldn't be separate. And you cannot be limited, particularly in this profession, with thinking you only should worry about the things that matter to you and impact you personally. Because when we look at COVID-19, going across social economic lines, racial lines, guess what? We can't move forward and open these stores unless all people are in a position of health and safety. So you know what, when you think narrowly, that's what you're gonna get. But I tell you, with this world becoming blacker and browner and mixed race and multi-race, you can live in a vacuum if you want to, you can have your head in a shell if you want to, but you know what, it's gonna catch up with you. And it's catching up with us because we see people who are calling the police on people who are in their space and basically don't believe they belong there. Whether it's at a park, a grocery store, a barbecue. You know what, I'm not going anywhere. And my people aren't going anywhere. And we are part of this culture, and I am an American, I have a right to sit at the table. So this thing about doesn't matter to you scares me, because your student population is going to be Black and brown, multiracial, and getting browner by the minute. And if you have that attitude, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for anybody who comes in contact with them, because you can't separate the work of the registrar and admissions from that. And ultimately, it's about enrollment, right? enrollment of people, enrollment of students, and making sure they survive and thrive and progress. And so when you have that attitude, I know what kind of employee you are. And I don't want you working for me.
So I would like to, I was looking in the chat, and Nichelle Bonds had I'm looking in the Q&A, I'm sorry. And Nichelle Bonds, I'd like to read what she typed in here and respond to it. So she said, I was the first African-American in my position and the only person of color in the unit. She had 28, and prior to my arrival, I was told by the internal candidate that the only reason I was hired was due to the university wanting to hire a person of color. It was a 5-year struggle of feeling the need to prove that I was hired because I was the most qualified. If any of you have had a similar experience, please share any survival techniques. Oh, I just lost it. Well, but that was the gist of the question. So 4 years ago, Nichelle, I was hired at as the university registrar at Morehead State University in Morehead, Kentucky. Morehead is the eastern part of Kentucky. It's Appalachia. It is Mayberry in a nutshell. It is Mayberry in a nutshell. I'm just gonna, let me say that one more time. Mayberry in a nutshell, okay? When I interviewed for the position and I was hired, and right then and there, when they gave me everything I asked for, I should have known something was going on. However, they hired me, and the next day, the woman who was going to be my future boss said, oh, I'm about to go call CPE, which is the Council on Post-Secondary Education. She says, I'm about to make a call to CPE because now they can take the hold off of us, and we can go ahead and put our program submissions in. So basically, the Council on Post-Secondary Education for the Commonwealth of Kentucky put a hold on Morehead State's program submissions for their EDD program because they did not have enough diversity in administration. So basically, I was that hired. 5.5 years I worked there, 5.5 years. I was the registrar for an office of 10.5 white people. I was, there were jokes. There was cultural unawareness. There was, Roz, we're gonna have a Halloween party and we're doing superheroes and you have to be Black Widow. Well, why do I have to be Black Widow? Well, because you're the only Black person in the office. Okay, and just to show you the ignorant statement, first of all, I didn't know who Black Widow was. When I Googled Black Widow, guess who Black Widow was? Black Widow was a white woman who played that character. So then I had to go and have a teachable moment, okay? So Nichelle, I survived 5.5 years. It was a struggle. I'm not gonna lie, it was a struggle. However, I went in with the mindset of, they hired me for a reason, not just to be that hired. So I put that piece of it out of my mind and I went in there and I did what needed to be done from a registrar perspective. Did they like me? No, they didn't like me. Like I said before, we were standing outside on the main road and the VP came out, VP of Alumni Affairs, an older white man, and there were 4 of us out there, Black people. He said, what is this, new? Are you about to take over the campus? You know, I dealt with that, things like that every day. I was the main person on the recruiting front. Oh, we have a Black registrar. At first it bothered me, but then I used it to my advantage when we brought more students of color in. When I was there, we recruited more students of color. We made strides at that university. I was instrumental in talking to the president and getting a space for our Black students because they didn't have a space. but now they do, and it flourishes and it thrives. Our diversity initiatives at Morehead State are to this day incorporated into the university's strategic plan. So, and I was seen as the angry Black woman, but it got to a point where I didn't care. Because when I left Morehead State 5.5 years after I got there, Morehead State was a much better institution. The registrar's office was respected. I left that place 500 times better than when I got there. The ignorant people that I supervised, they left. I knew I was going to lose people. They left. And then I was able to bring in people who were rock stars, who were more culturally aware, who were trying to be allies to minority individuals. Even at Ohio State, it's Ohio State, but I'm telling you, it's Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
I love my job, but you know, it's racism everywhere, everywhere. You know, for someone to look at my resume and say, "Oh, I didn't know you had this type of profile." Really? And I've been at Ohio State for 4 years. So you have to take that, like they say, life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Nichelle, you go on that campus every day and you make your lemonade. Because honey, that's not gonna be your last stop. That's not gonna be your last stop. So you go on there and you make your mark. Don't worry about what they say. Brush your shoulders off, girl. It's gonna be okay.
I'd like to add something to that. In my role, I believe in starting with evaluations when we start dealing with issues of how you behave in the workplace. And I have created what we call a professional development curriculum for my staff that they have to participate in. I have partnered with Human Resources and the Office of Diversity and Equity and Inclusion, and we have created some webinars, and they had to read Unconscious Bias, The Blind Spot, and I reached out to my colleagues to facilitate this, create a professional development curriculum, tie their evaluation to that participation, and then that's a start. That's a real practical thing to do. And I think you want to grow your staff's knowledge and expand their prism anyway. So create that, work with your ideal office, work with your human resources office, work with faculty in psychology and sociology, African-American history, create a year-long curriculum that they must participate in and tie it to their evaluations. And I promise you, whether they're digging in their heels or not, they will grow, and it will help you. It'll help them appreciate who you are and what you do. I am the first female director of admissions in Anne Arundel Community College, which is close to Annapolis. There's never been a woman. I don't even have to tell you the other part. So I've created that curriculum. That's something very practical to help them grow. Pull in a team. You don't need to always be the leader or the facilitator. Bring in the experts. Use the experts that you have with you within your college or university.
I'm a child of higher ed. And I think I just want to say this. I'm an immigrant. I'm from Jamaica. At 6 or 7, I was in riots because we couldn't get water. We couldn't get electricity. We couldn't get the bus to come. I think what
Nadia, we lost your audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I think what I'm trying to explain to this group is sort of, so I'm an immigrant Black story. And I worked in the residence hall, I was an RA, I'm a child of higher ed. Theories, you give it to me, yes, go. Why the kids sit together in the Black cafeteria, all the Black kids, yes, get it. We are alienating, I'm thinking of staff I've supervised. When you say, go to this training, and all the white people say, I don't know why this matters. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm cool, and I force that learning on them, it's almost like when I was an RA or a hall director, and we would get those students that said, my mom did my laundry. And I was like, God, you have so much privilege. Yeah. Because I had to sit at the river and wash my clothes. And for us, what I'm trying to challenge this group is to say, we can't expect people to be at the level we are. They're not. They're not. And if we double down by saying, you should think this, we're educators. We have a higher understanding. And we will alienate the groups that can potentially help us. I don't see this as us alone making this strides. But we have to think about ways in which, if I was washing my clothes in the river and this kid had their mom do their laundry, how do we bridge that gap? And I think what I'm saying is we're missing a piece here by saying, when that kid who washed the laundry in the residence hall, and I had to be like, listen, can you not flood this because the soap's all over the floor, and at Otterbein and at UGA and at St. Vincent and at NYIT, and there's gotta be a point that we say, I'm not saying what you did is okay or it's correct, but I can't force you to have the understanding that I have. So how else do we get to work them out? This is student development theory. This is psychosocial theories. This is chickering. This is, you can't force people to think a way they don't, but we want them to, right? So how do we get to that rather than force people? Because I will tell you, I've had plenty of staff members, student workers, RAs, that say, I didn't do anything wrong. But what's happening is they feel like you said I'm the problem. So when they feel I'm the problem, they say, okay, I don't care. So we have to, if we think about we're supervising people, we're in areas where XYZ happens. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm in a society, I'm in my work world where, thank God, I have one or two Black people that I can say, this is the situation. And I will just say, Roz is one of them. I can say, thank God I can talk to Roz because she exists. But for every Roz, there's 50, 60 other non-Roz. And what's the goal? The goal is to get those folks to an understanding, and we cannot alienate if we want change. So we can't just say, do this, attend this training, do that. So I think for me, what I'm saying is, as a Black person, a Black immigrant, a Black went to the pit latrine, a Black person that was involved in riots, burning things in my family when I was younger, the change, because when the media left my community, it never regrew. It never did. It never happened. It was further depressed. I also get to work, and when I say something because I'm strong and I'm vocal, it becomes, oh, Katie is angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm just saying what I need to say. And everyone, I think, is navigating that. But for me, I look at big picture. I'm sort of a big picture thinking person, in that we all have a responsibility to the white counterparts to say, they don't get it. And we can't, for every white person, you say you're the problem, or you don't get it, or you don't understand Black Lives Matter, or I don't see why. We further alienate the groups that can help it, because they're the majority and we want change. So we have to, at some point, think about, how do we delicately say this to get the change we want? And I think that's what I'm frustrated with. In our little groups, we're good, but when it gets out there, you're alienating a group. As far as they're concerned, the millennial, the Gen Z, this wasn't fault. And we can't say they're bad because they think that way, because they just don't understand.
So,
Thank you so much. And I hate to cut you off, but it's 1 o'clock and we're losing people. So we're gonna have to wrap up.
I want to thank Kadia for segueing us into a good summary, right? Because we have to wonder if we've come full circle, right? History seems to keep repeating itself, but I want to put forward a call to action, right? Because what we are talking about here, this is not just a one-time new sensational topic. We have to keep talking to each other about the issues. We have to help other people understand the issues, and we need to start talking about solutions. We need to be recruiting people who can be allies, but allies who are supporting us with action. One of the things that we will do here today, we had lots of good conversation, lots of resources were posted and shared. So we're gonna create a repository for these resources and post them online so that we all can have access to them and continue to add and contribute. Another thing that we will be doing as a result of this first town hall, and to me, it seems like we need to continue this conversation with other town halls, but we are gonna be creating a work group so that we can begin to review and make policy changes, right? As a national organization, as ACRO members, we have a voice, we have a collective voice, and we can move things from just a conversation to action. And so I wanna thank my fellow panelists and for everyone for participating. We are truly appreciative that we had this space today to be able to talk and to share with each other and to express our feelings. And this most definitely needs to continue. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. Yeah, I said it in the chat, but we will share the Q&A and the actual chat itself, probably a little bit cleaned up, and recording as well will be posted on the original town hall page.
Michael, can we all, the panelists, stay back when the people have left and talk?
Why don't I send you a separate Zoom invite just in case there are people that are lagged out or not paying attention.
Yeah.
So I'll end this night right now, and then I'll send a quick follow-up.
I'd like to have a postmortem, you know, quick. Do you have time, Philip? Do you have time, Kizzy?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
All right, I'll send that right out.
Okay, thank you.